think a ghost just opened my door. I don't know.
Ghost open your door?
Oh. I think a ghost just opened my door. Hello and welcome to July's edition of Kubernetes Meet Our Contributors. My name is Paris. I work at Apple. I am your host today. We are going to be answering a wide variety of upstream questions. Think of this hour as a end user or consumer office hours, except for it's upstream. So people have questions about their journey, whether it's PRs, issues, SIGs, all of these terms you're going to hear in the next hour. We have awesome panelists today who have volunteered their time to mentor y'all through this process. I'm going to give them a couple minutes to introduce themselves, but first things first, yes, we do have a code of conduct. Please be excellent to each other, no matter where you are asking or answering questions, whether that's on Slack, whether it's on Twitter, wherever it is, please be excellent to each other. And then the second thing is, if you would like to come on this panel in the future, if you're a current contributor out there and you're like, hey, I would love to help mentor folks, this is a great way. This hour provides a scalable service to hundreds of mentors who will listen to this program. And it's super easy. You just pop on this Zoom and we answer questions together. So let's get right into the intros. So who do we have here today? I'm just going to go through the Brady Bunch Zoom special here, and I'm going to pick the first person I see, and that's Jeremy. Jeremy, who are you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey everyone, I'm Jeremy. I work at VMware. I previously worked at Microsoft, and before that worked at VMware again. My journey to Kubernetes kind of came through starting to build a platform at VMware for internal SaaS services to run on. We started out using some things that were not Kubernetes, found our way to Kubernetes, and I got super interested in just the ecosystem and projects that kind of fit into that space. Went to Microsoft and started working on the open service broker for Azure, which allowed you to provision kind of cloud services via Kubernetes into Kubernetes Service Catalog. And through that, I started doing some upstream contributions there, got kind of interested in test infra to set some stuff, prow up for our repositories, and then started volunteering on the release teams. So I've been on a few different cycles of the release team. In 2018, I was the enhancements lead, and I'm currently shadowing the release team lead. So I'm pretty interested in SIG release and things that go along with that. I think it's pretty rewarding to participate in that area.
I am guaranteeing you will have a release question. So hold tight on all release info here shortly.
Awesome.
Cecile.
Hello, I'm Cecile. I work at Microsoft. I actually started right around the time before Jeremy left. I don't know if you remember me, Jeremy, but I was like a fresh college grad, just learning about Kubernetes at the time. So I've been at Microsoft for 3 years now. I started on what was at the time the Azure Container Service team. And so I've always been doing containers in Kubernetes since I started working there. And I worked on AKS a bit, AKS Engine, which is an open source tool for provisioning Kubernetes clusters. And more recently, I've been involved in SIG cluster lifecycle. And I'm actually a maintainer of cluster API provider Azure. So that's what I do with most of my days. My full-time job is to contribute to open source, which is really cool. Other than that, I'm from France, if you can't tell by my accent. but I've been living in the US for, I think, like a year now, but 3 years before that, I moved in and out. And I also lived in Canada for 5 years. So I've been a bit of all over the place. Yeah.
I always wanted to know if it was just me for the longest time that I had the name Paris and if other people in France had the name Paris. So that's just a personal quirk thing.
Yeah, I've met more Americans named Paris than French people, but I
It's
think
not my fault. It's my mom's. No, I'm kidding. Jorge, what's up with you?
So, hi everyone. I'm gonna start off with a disclaimer. After a couple years of contributing to Kubernetes, I'm still not used to being recorded, and I get a little bit nervous, but let me try my best. So, as Paris mentioned, my name is Jorge Larkin. I work with a startup, so I'm gonna say that I'm a site reliability engineer, but that just really means that I'm a software engineer. I suppose I guess different from most other people in this call. I actually never left the startup world. I have never worked at a company with more than 100 people. Never worked in anything that resemble a service provider. I always been an end user of Kubernetes containers and all the cool buzzwords that you can imagine. For my journey into Kubernetes actually started back in my first startup. I had never heard of containers, Kubernetes, anything. But my manager one day just came to me and say, "Hey, instead of SSHing into VMs, let's actually containerize this whole thing." I had no idea what he was talking about, but I said, "Sure, why not?" In a previous life, I used to be a physicist, and my big thing has just been about finding cool, interesting things to work on. So even though I had no idea what Kubernetes was, I barely knew what Docker was used for. I jumped into it and I scrambled for a really good and long while. When I was doing this, there wasn't a lot of documentation, a lot of resources, so I was making it up as I went, and some things didn't work out, some things just completely broke. But eventually, I just decided to jump in Slack. And fun fact, Paris is the first Kubernetes person that I ever talked to, and from then on, I just kept jumping in all over the place. I was a fly on for a good couple of months. I was a fly on the wall on almost every single SIG meeting there was. I just jump in, waiting for a moment where someone said a word of something that I could understand. Eventually that happened in a couple places, and I started picking up like the most random tasks, the most random questions, all helping out people with their cluster setups, deploying applications and the like. Eventually, thanks to Ben the Elder and the amazing team that is Kubernetes and Docker, I actually started contributing code and documentation to a project. It wasn't the fanciest thing, but it was pretty damn exciting to me. And from then on, I guess Kubernetes and Docker, that was like the big thing for me. It gave me enough of a feel to see how the rest of SIG testing actually how SIG testing actually work and the like. And then by pure luck, right as I was getting into Kind, I was chosen to be a shadow for the CI Signal team within the release team, which is a subproject of SIG release. I was in the release team for a couple cycles, mostly in SIG release. I eventually made it into the release team lead. Then I led a release, Kubernetes 118. Still working on shirts. If anybody wants some cool swag, ping me and I'll get you some shirts eventually. And after that, I was then made a. I was then. I became one of the first technical leads of the SIG release SIG. Sorry for repeating SIG as so much. And besides working and contributing to SIG release, I also been active on SIG testing, where I am a sub-project owner for Testing Commons. And the big idea there is we want to make end-to-end testing on Kubernetes simple and maintain a lot of the code that's been growing organically in there. And yeah, that's been pretty much that's my life story.
I was going to say, I think we now have a resume ready. And just kidding.
I was told to make my introduction longer than I.
No, it was good. I know it. How long has it been, though? How has it been longer than a year?
2 years, like almost 2 years.
Okay, time is a weird thing lately. Yeah, I'm just like, wow, has it really been 2 years? It honestly feels like I talked to you maybe like 6 months ago. That's kind of what it feels like. Anyway, so one of the most famous questions that we get, honestly, it's every open source project gets it. I already had a question from this morning queued up when we had some technical difficulties, and it's really about, where do I start? This is always a good question to get the panel started on, because obviously all of you have different ways that you started, and it's cool if you want to explain that way. But then the other thing is, a lot of this has to do with the individual too, right? So feel free to be as like general as you'd like, but we get a slew of these questions all of the time, which is in TLDR, how do I get started? Where should I go? What SIG should I pick? So what's some advice that you usually, if like somebody comes to you and says that to you, what are some things that you say kind of off the bat?
I can start.
One thing. Sorry, go for it.
Ahead. Thanks. Yeah. So I think this is a pretty common answer, but I always send people towards the good first issues label, which is in most projects really useful for finding like good small sized, small scoped first issues, which aren't going to be on the critical path. So you can take as much time as you want. That's very important. A lot of people come to me and they're like, I want to get started, but I don't want to, block the progress of the project. And I might not get this done in, 3 days. And that's completely okay. I think when you're first getting started, it's okay to take your time, especially if, you have other things going on in your job. So I, as a maintainer, I always try to make sure the good first issues are very well defined, and they also, are not things that are going to be blockers. So I recommend looking at those. And then in terms of where a lot of people often go to, like, Kubernetes/Kubernetes or the big repos that get the most attention, which is good. But also because there are so many people, I find that as a first time contributor, it can be a bit intimidating, and it's really big. It's a big code base. It's hard to, find people, like, know who to reach out to. So I personally think it's easier if you start in a smaller project, one that has less contributors, because one, that's where the most help is needed. And the maintainers and reviewers are going to be, happy to have new contributors, and I guarantee, like, they're all going to, like, make sure that you get the help you need and the reviews that you need. And it's also easier to make connections with people. And I think that's one of the really helpful factors when you're getting started in open source, is to know who to reach out to for help, and be able to, have a direct relationship with the owners, and, be able to ping them if you're stuck. So that's my take on it. It's different for everyone, like Paris said, but that's how I see it.
That's a great response. Jorge, I know you definitely have a response to this one too. What about you?
My take, I will recommend for people to actually attend different SIG meetings. Just sit in, listen in, and if anything sounds interesting to you, join the conversation. And actually, that's another piece of advice that I would just like to pass on. When I was doing it myself, I I never actually wanted to join the. I never actually wanted to join the conversation because in my head I just imagined that everyone else knows. Uh, I mean, they obviously know a lot more than I do, but they have some additional context, some hidden information that is not available to me. And if I speak out, maybe I'm gonna say something that may sound weird because I don't have that information. But I guess the big idea of an open source project is all that information should be known to everyone. So if you have a question, if you want to make a comment and you're worried that that it might sound a little bit funny, just speak out, ask, make sure that something comes out of it, and just follow on the conversations. A lot of SIGs they have tremendous amounts of work. Everyone has a huge queue of things they would like to do, and if you go on help wanted issues, that is an amazing tactic to get your hands dirty with some work. But there are also a lot of areas that don't have a lot of maintainers, and areas without maintainers, it's going to be rough to actually have some help wanted issues because you need people who know the work to also you need people who know the work in order for them to create the help wanted issues. And if you go into the SIG meetings, if you chat with people, you might catch up into some areas of Kubernetes, and it might be within core Kubernetes or within some SIG project. Maybe some areas don't have enough people or as many or they have a lot of work that they want to do, but they don't even have the people power to even get started and make a plan. Listen up for those kind of things, and if anything sounds interesting, just jump in.
Jeremy, what's a SIG? We keep hearing this word SIG.
What's a SIG? SIG is a special interest group.
Ding, ding, ding.
So it's a collection of people that are interested in a certain topic. So I was going to say that is a great way to figure out where you want to get involved too. So if you go to the Kubernetes community repo, you can find information about all the SIGs. Generally, it's you can find things like SIG network or SIG node, and they have a very specific focus of the things they're working on. So you can find something that is kind of near and dear to your heart as you're coming to the project. Like maybe you're super interested in networking, or maybe you're super interested in how like a container actually runs on the node, or maybe you're super interested in just like authentication and security. There's places where you can find to fit into all of those things. And like Jorge said, when he first came to the project, he went to every SIG meeting possible and kind of listened in and everything. I think that's a super good way to go to. If you don't really know what you want to do, the meetings are all public. They're recorded, so you can go watch the previous ones too if you're not really interested in like sitting down and you can't commit to the time at that moment, or you're not into joining the meetings live. You can listen into the previous ones and kind of see what's going on, figure out where you think you might fit, and start looking for good issues to work on. I think SIG Release is also a great place to get involved. Plug. Yeah. As Jorge mentioned, he was selected as a shadow for CI Signal. I did bug triage and enhancements. I think it's really cool because the shadow program is essentially like this apprenticeship. You can come in and you learn that specific role of the release team. And there's a whole lot of things that go into making a release happen. There's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes. And I know when we were picking shadows for enhancements, we were very diligent in trying to pick new contributors, trying to pick some people that had some experience. So we had a well-balanced set of people that could help us contribute and help us be successful, but also help grow everybody else in the community. I think that in general, people in each of the SIGs is really interested in helping to grow the people that are contributing to their SIG, people that are contributing to Kubernetes in general. They're just great places to go to get started, I think.
For sure. So in the spirit of collecting trends, another trend of questions that we always have for this show is from current contributors who ask, how the heck you have time to do this? People see that there's a lot of community groups. We just heard from Jorge, there's so many that he's even involved with. you all have clearly have day jobs as well. Some, obviously might be more closely affiliated than others, but at the end of the day, like, how do you fulfill all of these community duties that you have to do with upstream and still kind of manage your day-to-day life?
So I can start first because I've been in kind of two roles. At Microsoft, I was doing mostly open source things, and I felt really privileged to be able to do that. So I could spend a lot of my day job contributing to things. At VMware, I'm not so focused on doing upstream things. I still get a little bit of flexibility, but I find that I can still have a meaningful impact without having to spend a ton of hours. I don't have to stop working and then spend 8 hours working every day, working on some upstream thing. I can carve out a little bit of time to work on things here and there. Like my current release team requirements are not super extensive. A lot of Slack conversations that are kind of happening asynchronously, so I can do them when I need to. One of the other things I'm doing is I'm serving as a sub-project owner for enhancements under SIG architecture. So as new features come into Kubernetes, there's a process called the Kubernetes enhancement proposal that you have to go through. And one of the things we're doing there is trying to make the process easier, a little more automated, a little more friendly for people. And as part of that, I'm working on a tool. So writing some code to help kind of make that process a little bit easier. And I'm doing that in my off time. I think that it's pretty easy to carve off, for me at least, to carve off small chunks here and there. There's no expectation that I'm doing things during a certain time. I think everybody knows that we're all distributed and we're all working day jobs. We're doing this stuff in support of those day jobs, maybe, or we're doing them just for personal fulfillment. And everybody's super understanding. So, I mean, I don't know if that was a great answer or not, but I think that any time that you have available can have a meaningful impact, whether it's opening an issue or fixing a bug or fixing some spelling and documentation. Like, all of those things are great contributions to the project in the long run.
Happen. Cecile, how about you?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm lucky because I'm in the first case that Jeremy mentioned where, contributing is my day job. So I mean, I still have other things going on, like outside of that, of course, but I do get to spend the most of my time making contributions upstream. But I realize it's not the same for everyone. Like Jeremy said, I think people are really flexible with, how much you contribute. And I think what's important is that when you're doing something, it's okay if you're not going to be able to go all the way, but if you do it in a way that's easier for someone else to come and help or pick up some of it, it goes a long way. So for example, if you know that you want to get something done, but you're not going to be able to have time to, make the whole implementation happen, you can open an issue and try to break it down into smaller chunks and say like, hey, I need help on this. Like, who wants to help out and pick this up? For example, we did this once for one of the projects I was working on. We needed to write new unit tests for a package in the project, and we broke it down into each file. And so we had like checkboxes and people, and this is really good for first-time contributors too, because it was like an easy, like well-defined area. And so people would just like assign their name next to the checkbox, and then we like got it done in a month with 10 different people. And so things like that, I think, are good. And yeah, like it doesn't have to be writing code. It can also be, like Jeremy said, opening issues or attending the meetings, helping take notes. We always need people to do that. So yeah, and then definitely don't hesitate to be open with the people that you work with about your time commitment and about your ability to commit time or not. Because I think it's a lot easier if there's communication about that, and if people are have the right expectation of what time you're going to be able to put in. And so like when you're working on something, just say like assign, I'm working on this, and if you don't have time to get to it, it's completely fine, but just unassign and tell like, hey, you know what, I actually won't be able to get to this, so someone else can pick it up, instead of staying assigned and then no one else can work on it because they think you're working on it. So yeah, communication really helps with that, I think.
100%. I couldn't agree more. All right, what's startup life? How you holding?
It's it's something. I never had a job where contributing was even a part of my duties. Uh-huh. Uh, and for the most part, I have survived the last couple of years, just being trying to be super organized. Even if there are some times where there are some days where I really can't commit any time to do anything useful, but other than that, just try to carve out some time every single day, just to try and do something. Especially prioritize things that are going to help someone else. Uh, for example, create an issue about the thing that you've been meaning to do, but you don't really have time, or jump in a call and try to show someone how to do the thing so that they can work on it, or so that you two can work on it, and then you can co-review and the like. Uh, that kind of thing. But yeah, between for my case, Kubernetes, besides being super interesting just because of the thing that it does, I see that contributing to open source as kind of an as a, I don't know what to call it, but I'm gonna say something like a duty. Like a personal duty. It's my little way of trying to make the world a little bit better. Trying to help some people solve one issue, so that they can, instead of worrying about infrastructure or how to deploy things, they can go on and fix bigger problems. So I try to be really. I really try to commit some time every now and then to just get things rolling and make sure that nothing falls behind.
Oh, good. We want to make the world better. We do too. All right. Next question. I've got a couple questions in the queue about flaky tests. I've got some other questions in the queue. Hold on one sec. Let me get to the queue. In my queue, by the way. Oh, by the way, if anybody is just joining us, I wanted to do this earlier and did not. If you're just joining us from wherever, whether it's Twitter, Slack channels, wherever the heck else I've posted this, and you want to ask questions, we are doing that on the Kubernetes Slack channel. It's #meetourcontributors or my DMs if you'd like to be anonymous. I do get several DMs. Most people are like, hey, I've been here for 2 years and I don't necessarily know what a SIG is. So they might be embarrassed, but that's okay. Like, go ahead and ask us questions. We're here live. So let's go with some of the flaky test stuff. So there's a couple people that want to know how they can chase down flaky tests. And it looks like they're just kind of confused with just end-to-end testing too. So I don't know if y'all folks want to kind of give some tips and tricks on flaky tests with the project, or talk about how contributors can work around testing issues. I have a feeling Jorge probably has some decent responses here.
To be honest, I wish I did. Flaky tests are the most wonderful thing in the world because each one of them is flaky in its own very special way. So I wish
take us through a troubleshooting process. Take us through a story. Take us through a story of a recent flaky test.
Yeah, I definitely wish there was a recipe, but I think the biggest thing that you can do is just ask as much as possible, and a lot of people are going to give you small pieces and bits of information that are going to be useful for you. But
where should they ask?
SIG test, anything that has the word testing on it. But the best place that you can go and ask anything questions related to testing are SIG testing. Okay. If they are if they're general questions, if you're looking at the flaky test of SIG node, let's say, then jump on SIG node first, and usually the thing is for the most part, there are some 5 types of tests. You have your unit test, and unit test. If you have to get comfortable with Go in order to be able to debug them. You have integration test, integration and end-to-end test. Those ones, if they are breaking, then ask your SIG or ask SIG testing, because half the test is actually things that are explicit, that are specific to some area. The other half of the test are actually due to infrastructure and the like, and all the infrastructure is managed by SIG testing. And the other area of tests are specific to a couple SIGs. For example, in SIG cluster lifecycle, they have this amazing thing called kubeadmin, and SIGNode. They have one of the biggest things that SIGNode works on is the kubelet. And for example, those two components, they actually, at least those are the two components that I know that are in core Kubernetes. Those two components have their own way of setting up tests. And but overall, I will say that a good way of tracking down a flake is try to replicate it. If you can successfully replicate the flake, then you are pretty much set up, and everything else from there is gonna be a lot easier. But then again, the complicated thing is to actually be able to replicate it, because now you have to run some relatively complicated end-to-end test, possibly in your machine or in some VM or some other random place. And I wish there was a simple one-sentence question, but running end-to-end test, it's kind of an art. But if you have any questions on that, please jump on SIG testing or on your SIG channel, and a lot of people are going to have a lot of really cool answers and material for you to read and experiment with.
I knew you were going to have a good response. That was a good one. Especially because that a lot of folks don't understand that some of the SIGs own some of the, like, a lot of the tests. So I think that's the point of confusion that I see from my angle, from like community management side, is people don't necessarily know where to go and like where to connect those dots. Jeremy or Cecile, do you have anything to add to that?
I think that answer was awesome. So not really. I think when you encounter one of these things, the right thing to do is to look into it a little bit. Then, move on to the SIG. Try to work with people to see if they have any more context. See if they have any ideas about how to resolve it.
So another question that we get a lot, and I just got in DMs, is how does someone actually become a reviewer? So there's an owner's file. Inside of the owner's file, this is for context for folks that are listening. Inside the owner's file, there is the approver and the reviewer. This is how your code and docs get approved. How does one act? So they've been contributing for a while. Are they supposed to ask? Should the maintainers ask? What's been your personal experience in this area? And what's some tips that you can give to people who are kind of like in this ambiguous, what do I do stage?
I can try to answer this one.
Yeah, do that.
So one thing I'll say is it really depends on the project. So there are out there, I don't remember where, Paris probably knows, there's a document somewhere in Kubernetes community, I think, that explains, what are the requirements to be a reviewer. And then, so there are some criteria that are published. I think those apply to Kubernetes in general, but that being said, not every project works the same way in terms of, like how many PRs or how many contributions do you need to have to become a reviewer or maintainer. Often it also depends on, the need for new owners. Some projects are, like they need more reviewers. And so they'll maybe, it might be a bit faster to become a reviewer in that project. But I think in general, it's important to show consistency over time. So if people come in and, make like a lot of contributions, but they've only been around for 2 weeks, you might need like a bit more time to make sure that they're gonna, stay around, and there is gonna be consistency over time in their contributions. So that's one thing. But other than that, yeah, definitely do, bring up your interest. I think that's the best way. Talk to the current owners, see if they have a need for, more reviewers. And, once they know about your interests, they might, make you like bring you in and like have you help review more PRs and, act as a reviewer until, you can actually become an official reviewer. So that's one way. I think, yeah, bringing it up is the best way for me with the current owners.
Yay, communication. Open communication, y'all. What about Jeremy or Jorge? What about your personal take and experience?
Yeah, I think what Cecile said is spot on. My personal experience starting with Service Catalog was doing some reviews. Just you don't have to be a reviewer to review code. You can always go through and leave comments and be involved. So I did that for a little while, and then I was nominated to become a reviewer, and then I became an approver after a little while. Working through the chain. I think that definitely communication is crucial, and being an active participant is crucial to work through that process.
What are some qualities that you look for in good reviewers? Especially
I think
for maybe your areas too.
I think in general, just having a good understanding of the code base is pretty important. Obviously leaving substantive comments and constructive things that help people along, help maintain the the quality of things that are there, are things that I would look for when I was trying to identify somebody that would be a reviewer. I've done this on my other open source projects as well. Is the person contributing often? Are they contributing good, constructive pieces of feedback? Like people that are coming and doing drive-bys once in a while, drop in and do a thing and then leave, drop in, do a thing and then leave. I think that's not the kind of continuity that makes a good reviewer. I think having that consistency is really, for me, is probably like the most important thing.
Yeah, for me, another thing that I look for is the ability to welcome new contributors and mentor them. I think that's really important for reviewers and maintainers of projects in general, is being able to, help out people who are getting started and give them pointers, not necessarily do the job for them, but just like help them get started and, show them how the code base works and all of that. Yeah. I forgot what the other thing I was going to say.
Well, you think about it, Jorge, what about you? What are some things that you've seen and that other people have exhibited that would qualify as really good reviewer skills?
I think everything. I don't know if I can add a lot. All the everything that was just said. Those were. I think those are the basic ideas that will get anyone into an owner's file.
Yeah. Did y'all see and I'm sorry for the trash can truck outside of my window. Yay, work from home life. Did y'all see the Tim Hawkin video from Contrib Summit for how to be a reviewer? Okay. Yeah, I thought that was really good. You did it? No, I'll show it to you. I thought it was really good. It had a ton of good substance in there. I'll paste it in the chat window as well, so we have a record of that for folks listening to the recording.
Yeah, I was there in person. Highly recommend watching it.
Yeah,
it's really useful.
Good. Well, that's good. What else did you like about that day, Cecile? So, by the way, context for people watching: we have a contributor summit when we meet face to face at some point in the future. But in the past, we've had plenty of fun where we all get together and learn and just hang out. So what were some of the other things that you thought were good that day?
So I actually got there halfway through the day because I was flying into San Diego that day. And so I missed the morning, most of the sessions in the morning. But what I really liked was the people aspect of actually meeting people in person that I had been interacting with on GitHub and Slack. And it does really help to, put a face on the name and have that relationship later on of, oh, we've met, so I can reach out to you, I know who you are, and like vice versa. So for me, that was the best part, because it's like a lot of the people I work with day to day aren't my teammates at Microsoft. They're my teammates all over the place, and so it's great to be able to meet those people in person and share a moment outside of the day-to-day GitHub.
Yeah, solid +1 to that. I
plus
thought
40, at least. There's
yeah,
probably
plus
4,000
infinity.
Yeah.
I think another thing that I really liked was participating in the new contributor workshop. I acted as a TA with Chris on one of the workshops, and it was really fun to talk to people about where they were coming from and how they got to be at the contributor summit and what was interesting to them, and helping them work through some issues, figuring out how to open a PR, how to interact with Prow. Like those things were all like seeing people successful, I think was great in that. Hearing other people talk and meeting people was great too. I think it's a super cool time. If you're going to go to KubeCon, going to the contributor summit is really great.
Jorge, I don't think you've been, have you?
Never. I have never been to a Kubernetes event that wasn't on Zoom.
Oh, were you supposed to go this year? That was the thing.
Yeah,
Oh,
this was supposed to be my first one.
I can't lift my head right now. Hold on. What a bummer. I'm sorry. Well, we definitely missed you. And that is honestly it for the questions that I have. So actually, I want to open it up to you all. I think this might be the first time you have talked to each other, I think. Well, except for Cecile and Jeremy's in and out connection at Microsoft. Do you have any questions for each other?
We overlapped a little while. I came in 2017. So I think we...
Oh, me too.
We met in person a few times, I think.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's the circles that we travel in this world. So I worked with Jorge on the 118 release a lot, and that was really enjoyable. So I feel like the band is back together right now.
Any questions for each other?
I just want to point out something that someone said on Slack, which is a really good point about being able to LGTM, even if you're not a reviewer. So as a member, if you're a member of the org, you can LGTM and the label will be applied. But in general, you don't need to be a reviewer to review PRs. So that's one thing. If you want to become a reviewer, just review PRs. That's the best way to get there, is to do it, I think. So yeah, like feel free to as you're contributing to a code base, also contribute by doing PR reviews. And even if at first you need someone else to also double check and come and make sure you didn't miss anything, that's fine. It will help to have someone going through and doing a first round of review. So yeah, I just wanted to comment on that.
Yeah,
totally agree.
And I actually want to jump back into reviews. One thing that just came to mind, and this was my hack for making it through life, is there have been a lot of things that I wanted to work on because the idea was interesting, but I had no idea how it was actually done, implemented, or anything of the like. And and you can definitely just review anything that you find. But if you don't know how to actually review some area of Kubernetes, I'm just gonna make something up. Let's say that you are really into etcd and you want to become a maintainer for something in API machinery that manages etcd. If you have no idea where to start, try looking at all the PRs that have emerged or all the PRs out in flight, and read through the comments. try to make sure that you understand why people said whatever it is that it is that they were saying. If you can again, consistency, it's key. If you can do that, you're eventually going to travel your way through whatever area that you are actually interested in. And if you make it through some handful of PRs, then you're going to be on your way to actually being able to not only help with the review, but actually build your own thing and push those XXL PRs into some code base.
Yeah.
I have a question for you both, or all three of you, I guess. So along with open source and Kubernetes comes this public life aspect. A lot of people are, very active on Twitter, and there's like people know your name and like from GitHub, and that's not something everyone is used to or comfortable with. Like, I'm personally an introvert, and it's always like a bit hard for me to put myself out there and like do things like this where people can see me on YouTube. And like, do you have any tips for people who are getting started and who are interested in doing public speaking or getting involved and being more known in the space?
Jeremy's face right now is like,
I was trying to think of how to respond to that.
well, it was that like, I know she's not talking to me. You go, Jeremy.
I don't know. So I feel like until I started doing things in open source, I felt like I was totally in that introvert camp. Like, I was terrified in college of any kind of public speaking. I don't know, anything like, I would never like record myself and be on YouTube. Like, that would terrify me. Speaking at KubeCon would terrify me if I was in college still. And I think that, I don't know, the first time that I spoke at KubeCon in Copenhagen, I think, for the first time, about service catalog. I mean, it was good because like I was really into service catalog, and it was something I knew a lot about. Oh, we did meet at DevOps Days. That was the first time that I spoke in public. Chris just mentioned that in DevOps Days Detroit. Like, I was kind of trying to put myself out of my comfort zone and look for something to do at that point. I don't know if it was good or not. I was absolutely terrified the first time that I did it. And I think that you do what you're comfortable with. And if you can totally contribute to Kubernetes and do whatever you want to do in open source without having to do any public speaking, without having to be social. I think it's really whatever you're comfortable with, and whether you want to push yourself to be in a different space. Like, I definitely wanted to make myself more comfortable doing public sort of things. So the DevOps Days thing in Detroit was, I talked about what my team was doing at VMware at the time. And I think it was good in like a couple ways, because it forced me to like introspectively look at what I was doing and what our team was doing, but also it made me a little more comfortable being in front of a bunch of people and not, I rehearsed a ton for it, and I still do. Whenever I do any kind of talk, I think that I spend a ton of time because I don't think that I'm good at it. And I think that I have to spend a lot of time making myself ready to do what I'm going to do and not feel awkward. I still feel like when I do like community meetings, like running the SIG release meeting, or the release team meetings, or at Microsoft, I worked on a project called Cloud Native Application Bundles, and I ran community meetings a lot. And I felt like every time before one of those things, I just had this like deep sense of awkwardness that I had to get over. So I still feel like it's a challenge for me, but I wanted to personally make myself better, not better, but like more comfortable doing those sort of things. And I think open source has helped me with opportunities to do those things. But again, like, I don't think that that's required. I think you can be perfectly capable, perfectly happy, and perfectly plugged in to be effective to do any of that sort of thing without having to be on Twitter all the time or submit CFPs to KubeCon or other places all the time.
to be honest, I'm still terrified. Back a couple months ago when Win, who was the lead for for Kubernetes 117, asked me if I wanted to do it for 118. I honestly hesitated just because I will have to actually host every single Kubernetes release meeting, and that was like that was my big issue. The work, just it's not simple, but you can if you do it enough, you get used to it. But I did not want to host every single meeting and actually be recorded in every single meeting and be the one person that definitely talks in every single meeting. And if anything, I think my I'm still in the story from someone I don't remember, and I apologize because I cannot give you credit for it. But at some point, I heard the story that whenever you actually want to ask for a raise or something, don't if you're super shy and you don't like putting yourself out there. And I am not. Before I even tell the story, I'm not saying that this is good. This is just my trick, and it works for me. But for example, if you want to negotiate your salary, don't do it for yourself, but try to advocate for something else. If you give me a raise, that is not just money that I'm gonna spend uh, on I don't know, something fancy, but it is money that I'm going to use to sustain my family. It is more money that I can give to charities and the like. And open source wise, I cannot do this. I cannot do the same thing. Uh, uh, Coming into contributors meeting, I don't see it like I don't see it like doing propaganda for myself, but in my head, the thing that made me okay with actually coming in here and talking to the whole world is the idea that there might be someone who's looking at who's staring at Slack right now and trying to figure out how to join the community or how to learn how to use Kubernetes. And if I can say anything that is remotely useful to them, that is completely worth it. Uh, Anything related to tax and the like similarly, I try not to think about myself, but actually try to focus so much on the work. Like if I'm actually working on this, I do it because I believe that it is useful to someone for something. But if I truly believe that it is useful, then the best thing that I can do for that job is to put it out there. And other than that, again, this is just one of my hacks. I feel like uh, you just gotta get used to being awkward because it's not bad. It's something I can see being awkward as a feature, not as a bug. It's kind of nice to show people that you're a real person. You might be tech lead or a super awesome maintainer of this committee, but you're still human. You get nervous about some things. You stumble through your sentences. You have an accent. That kind of thing.
That's a really good answer. Thank you.
I'm still terrified. I just threw myself out there a few years ago and I was like, you know what? It's just hopefully going to get better with time. It kind of hasn't. It's not like whoever said that one thing a long time ago about like, oh, as soon as you run your first mile, it just gets easier. That's not true either. But I feel like I've made mistakes in the past, and now I'm just like, anytime I'm on stage, I'm just like, well, can't go as bad as that one time. So I definitely have, I think, a different take on it too. And I also understand that we're all learning in public, all of us, and that is very vulnerable. And that's something that I like. I also try to ask more questions than I usually do in public so that other people can see that and like try, like kind of what Jorge is saying, or you're like, you humble and be yourself and just like, that's kind of the air. And like, as far as Twitter is concerned, like you don't have to participate like that. I tell everybody that, like, if that's not your thing, don't do it. Like I know Jeremy makes it his thing. A lot of people make it like a thing, right? They make it what they want out of it. So like, don't feel like you ever have to participate in any of this stuff either. That's my advice. And that kind of wraps up our show. Actually, wait, I think there is one more question that we might have time to squeeze in because it's an IDE question. And I think we can just snap off some good answers. Someone in chat asked, what kind of IDEs and development tools do you use to understand, review, and contribute to the code base? I feel like I know what your answer is going to be.
I use VS Code, but honestly, I really like the extensions that are available for Kubernetes, and being able to visualize clusters and all of that. Check it out. Golang is also really good for writing Go codes. But yeah, that's my answer.
Yeah.
Same for me. I think that the extensions in VS Code are just really awesome. Even beyond like Kubernetes, small plug for VS Code. I'm in a totally remote team, and the live share extension that's in it is super awesome for like pairing with people. I know it's just, I find it really, really fun to work in. I use Golang a little bit too, but like primarily VS Code for me.
I want to talk about that live sharing component. We should scale that here. Anyway, Jorge, what about you? What are you using?
I'm going to give a horrible answer, and honestly, I'm gonna blame it on me being raised on old school system administration. Back when a cluster was just a bunch of really computers connected through Wi-Fi. I use Vim and grep. Those are my two things. And I want to say that they are a really good excuse because you don't have anything fancy, so you have to actually read the entire code. And I want to say that's kind of useful.
From the rocket scientist. If you're anyone else that's not a rocket scientist, VS Code sounds like a great response. I also use VS Code. I just started, by the way, so plug to the VS Code team. And that is it for us, y'all. You are so wonderful. I had such a good time. Thank you so much. What I'm going to do now is cut up some of the stuff that y'all said into little bits and put it on YouTube. And then we'll have that as a recording. And that's it. So next month, it's going to be not the same time in the same place for those listening in. We'll do it at 7:30 a.m. Pacific Standard. I think that's something like, I don't know, don't make me do it, 2:30 UTC, something along those lines. But yeah, same thing next month, different panelists, and that's it. We're out. Chris, hit that YouTube button. Oh, really quick, thanks so much to Chris Short for live streaming this. Yay, Chris. We had some snafus this morning, and Chris helped us and came through this afternoon with the win. Thank you so much, Chris. And we're out.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then y'all hang on for just a second until we kick the stream. And